Hi and good morning everyone. My name is Jan and I'm working for Laminar Research. One of the things I do is make gateway airports, and my co-worker and friend Julian is the moderator for the Scenery Gateway. That's where all of you guys that watch this video upload your airports that you have completed. Thanks a lot for your help, and we all know that the airports in X-Plane are great. They're crowdsourced, and people with lots of passion and heart pour a lot of effort into making them, and it really shows. Now X-Plane is getting nicer and nicer, especially in the visual department, and the airports need to keep up. And in recent times we've had problems where people are uploading airports that are maybe not all they could be. And of course we don't really want to reject work that's been done on a volunteer basis and for free, but of course we need to make sure that the user experience when people fly X-Plane is great, and that means that the airports need to look nice. And more Julian is facing the situations where airports are technically okay, but aesthetically they are not done as well as they could be. And we discussed this and decided that maybe the easiest way to help everyone, because no one is doing this on purpose, it's just usually a lack of good documentation, information and guidance on how to make airports, and we figured out that maybe the best way to fix this is making a short video to show some of the more prevalent problems and what to do to avoid them. I will start with the one issue that's always coming up again and again, and that is the airport boundary. I'm taking Frankfurt-Egelsbach here. It's the first airport that I ever did for X-Plane almost 10 years ago. I submitted it back then. We didn't have a scenery gateway, but since I live near Frankfurt, it was maybe one of the, well, I think the first one I worked on was my home airport, Lützellinden near Gießen, but this is one of the first ones I then later submitted. So in between, it's been done by or improved by other artists. They did a great job, and I'm not picking this airport to like pick on them or so, but I just picked one because I have to start somewhere. Now, airport boundary. We always used to say do it where the airport fence is, but the latest definition is really place the airport boundary where you want X-Plane to make a free space for you to put your airport in. The airport boundary will clear away forests and houses. It will not clear away roads. So like these roads, if they are in OSM, they will stay there. And that's how you can use them. Now, for example, it's easy if you look at this edge over here. I would put them, straight here, but like let's do that. Let's start with the boundary. It's this little fancy thing, and you could draw it like this. Here, not to make too many clicks because the validation will complain. You want this to stay as simple as possible. Now, this would be like a natural way to do it. Of course, you could also argue. Let me erase that. You could also argue that you want to, put it where X-Plane needs to remove the trees. So this would also be maybe even a better way to put it. So let's look back here. You see this is where the airport fence is, but you want the boundary to remove the trees, and maybe X-Plane puts trees right up to the fence, and you don't want that. So this is also a valid thing to do, and I would probably do it like this just to make sure that the trees don't grow too close to the runway. Nowadays, we do not want to use exclusion zones anymore. We used to do that to like get rid of the trees then, but exclusion zones should not be used unless you really need them to. You know that the boundary will not take effect until Laminar Research recuts the global scenery. That happens every few years only. So when you place a boundary, you really are working for the future. And that's why you will not see an immediate effect. And if you make an airport and you place the boundary and you see the trees are still growing right up to the runway, then you really need to use an exclusion zone and use that to remove the trees. Now, if you move over here, you can see the fence goes like this. And this would probably be a good way to do the boundary. But then what about these two buildings here? They are clearly part of the airport. It's probably a business that's, you know, doing something, cargo or whatever. And let's say you want to include them. Well, in this case, I would include this part because you want Explain to give you the canvas here to clear this area. But of course, then you will have to put these buildings in. You will have airport looking grassy, you know, texture right where the boundary goes. I didn't do that very nicely over here, maybe like this, but just be aware of that. And then in the future, people will always have to put in these buildings. Another argument is that, you know, maybe the autogen scenery and Explain in the future is going to be a lot better. They know that there's you know, buildings here, and the autogen will put these buildings here, and it can't do that if you put the boundary around it. So it's like a little bit, you know, it's difficult. Where do you want to do that? What about let's say this little industrial area back here? Obviously this is still part of the airport. What about this building back here? You could theoretically do it like this, and then, you know, have to put all these buildings in here to make it look nice. Or you could say, hey, you know what, I'm sure that in the future the Explain autogen is going to be nice, so I'm just going to put it right where the airport is. Maybe, you know, these buildings here, like this. And then I count on the future autogen to put in these parking lots, these buildings over here. So if you place the boundary, think about what you want to do, what you want to fill in. We obviously don't want you to start making, you know, houses over here and making a big boundary just to clear a big area. You want to keep the boundary as tight as possible, especially in hilly terrain. You want to keep it as close to the airport proper as possible, because it will in fact start flattening and smoothing the terrain. And that's something that will, you know, influence the whole area. Now Egelsbach is flat, but if it's mountainous terrain and you make the boundary really big, then it will start away cutting, you know, hills that are close to the airport that maybe give it a distinct look in reality. So that's my thoughts about the boundary. Again, you do not need to, or at first, when you place the boundary, it will not have an effect. You won't see it do anything. You're just doing it for the future. And if you find that your airport needs an exclusion zone, where are the exclusion zones? Over here. Maybe, you know, there are trees right here, and then you say, okay, I'm going to put an exclusion zone right, right here. Yeah. And I'm going to make it big enough so that the planes can approach without hitting the trees. Put it like this and make it, of course, you would have to make it a forest, not road. And then later on, when the scenery is recut, the next guy does the, you know, an improvement to this airport. He can then remove the exclusion zone if it's not necessary anymore. Explain also has an automated function now. It will look at where the threshold is and it will clear an approach path into the autogen. If there are houses here, if there are trees here, it will clear them away. In my opinion, it doesn't do a very thorough job of it. It's a very narrow gap that you have to, you know, maneuver your Cessna in between. I wish it was a little broader, a little, you know, further out. But that's the way it is. And so this is like an automation that's also being done at the time when the scenery, the global scenery, is recut every few years. It will clear a swath through the autogen, so you don't need your exclusion zone to extend far out to make space for arriving aircraft. But again, this will not happen immediately. It will only happen after quite a while. So when you open an old airport, go take a look and see if the old exclusion zones are still necessary. Most likely they won't be. Now the second subject is going to be how to draw polygons nicely. This is still elusive to a lot of people. The first problem is, let's say they do a taxiway and just go like, take a texture, and then they start looking at the background image, Esri image, and they go like this and this and this and this and this and this, and they just basically trace the taxiway, and it naturally later on, if you look at it in the simulator, it looks crappy because you have all these nodes here. Let me just complete it. You can see all these nodes here. Sometimes they even have little, you know, make them Bezier turns, like this one here, placed sloppy. You can see it's actually Bezier curve. And this is not the way you should do it. If there's a straight line in the real world, you want to make a straight line in the simulator. If there's a turn like this, for example, see here, you don't want to go like this and this and this and this to make it. You want to make one turn. You go like this and you draw it like this, and then another one here, and that's that. You know, try to make as few nodes as possible. Even if you manage to place them in a totally straight line and you can see it in the simulator, it's still going to take up storage space. It's still going to make it harder for the engine to draw, and you really want to, you know, make geometric forms that match what is out there in the real world. For example, this thing here, that's a rectangular thing. If you, let's say you know, normally you wouldn't, you know, just draw the rectangle here, you would draw it like this. But let's say this is what you want to draw. Now, this isn't a perfect rectangle. It is probably in the real world, but when you draw it by hand like I just did, you can't get it to go. So go to Edit and say make a regular poly, or you know, this one, Control Q, do it like this, and you see it snaps a little bit out and it makes it have 4 right angles, so it's looking nice in the simulator. Same thing if you want to make a you know, a lot of people, is there one here? Yeah, like there's a circle here around this thing, or often there's circles around the windsock, and then people take a line. I'm just going to take you know what, the road edge white as a line here, and they go like this and this and this and this and this and this, and then say, wow, you know, this is a really cool windsock. No, it's not. You want to make it regular. Let's see if I can make a regular poly like this. See, there you go, and then you can put it out. And the way I do circles is I just make 4 things like this. Don't need to make it really nice. See, it looks like a sloppy one. And then you go edit and make a regular polygon, and it makes it, turns it into a nice perfect circle. And humans like to look at nice perfect circles and not sloppy things. Same here. If you draw a line here, you know, let's say you want to draw this taxi line on this taxiway, and you can see it starts out over here, and it is probably one straight line all the way down here. Now, in the real world, there isn't a guy walking there with a brush and he's dragging it around the ground. Usually these things are laid out really nice. And if you look at it really close, you can see, well, it's not matching here perfectly. And over here, yeah, it's okay. And over here, oh, it should be a little further up north. So people, you know, they tend to do lots of nodes here to, you know, make it match the Esri image. But if you look over here, you can see that the Esri image isn't always perfect. It might be off by a few centimeters or even half a meter or so. So in the real world, this is probably a straight line. So think about that, you know, make lines that are straight in the real world, also straight in the simulator, and then go from there. If you want to make this one a join here, look at the next straight line. It's probably starting here, and it's probably going to here, and then, you know, it's making a turn here, and actually it goes here and stops here, because from this one is also a straight line, and it goes from here to here. Now, you know, you see this hits pretty well, but what I'm getting at is, if it's a straight line in the world, make it a straight line in the simulator as well. And then if you have a turn like this, you go like this and you do one here and you make it match. You don't do 5 nodes to hit this line. You make one and you adjust it until you feel that it's working well. And then another big thing is snapping. People do this all the time. They go like this. Oh, this is looking like a nice joint now. And it does in WED, but in the simulator it won't, because the simulator has less precision than WED. In WED, you can go like this or you can go like this. In the real simulator, it will be here or here or here. So to tell the real simulator that you want this to join, you need to make a node here. Select the line, hold down Alt, click, and then you take this one and you snap it until it snaps. And now these are snapped together, and now the simulator knows, okay, you want these 2 nodes to be in the same spot, and it will do that accordingly, and it will look nice. Talking about snapping, that's another thing. If you use taxiway textures or any textures at all, and you, let's say, see, it goes a straight line over here, and then there's probably a little curve here to here, and then here. Now let's look at this one. This may look like this. Goes to here, straight line over here, and then one node here to here, here, and so on. You get the idea. Now I'm just going to close it to get on with it. Now this isn't nice. So you can say, hey, I'm just going to overlap it. I'm just going to go like this. That way there's not going to be a gap here or anything. But of course, that's not the way you should do it, because often you have textures. This is just the plain taxiway, but if you make it worn, for example, or let's see, patched. Now these aren't great. Concrete is always good. Concrete has a texture. You can see that these cracks here, and you make this one also concrete to really show the problem. So see, now you have this texture here and this texture here. Now, who knows which one's going to be on top? Often with taxiways, there's a certain order, but if you use regular polygons, it won't be. It will be totally random. So if this taxiway is on top, it's going to look crappy because it looks like someone poured the concrete all the way over this other concrete. You really want these to be adjoined nicely. So what you do is hold down Alt, make nodes in this taxiway texture, and then you take this one and you snap it. Snap and snap. See, now they will always have a nice gap. There won't be a nice gap. They will join nicely, and you won't have it looking like this in the simulator. You don't want to overlap. You want to make nodes and snap. Talking about textures, you all know that you can orient textures. You know how this one now looks stupid because the cracks or the joints here run like this. They will probably run parallel. So what you do is you can either type in a texture heading of, let's say, 80 degrees. Yeah, that didn't work. So you can experiment, or you can just hold down Shift, click on it with the left mouse button, and then start dragging out. See? And now you can really make it match the edge, and that way you will have a texture that fits the direction of the whole patch. And you do the same thing here when you do a taxiway. Try to make the texture, if this was a taxiway, goes like this. I'm just going to make this little thing here. And this is plain, it doesn't have a direction, but if you make a concrete taxiway, you want to do the same. Oops, wrong. Hold down Shift. No. Click on this one first, the vertex tool, Shift, draw it out like this, and then the texture looks aligned. Now, of course, if there are other taxiways joining and you just make one big taxiway texture, it's a little difficult. You could go and make different sections that are always aligned with the center line. That's really a lot of work, but at least try to make it follow the main direction of the main taxiway, and it will also look okay on the ones that are at a right angle to it, because the texture will look okay. Another thing, when you are joining two pavements that are not a straight line. See, here we have straight lines, but maybe they're not. Maybe you have, let's do it like this. Maybe you have this taxiway here, one node, and it goes over here, and then further on, I'm just going to make it close here so that you get what I'm saying. Maybe to really show it, it goes like this. So now let's say you have another taxiway here or another pavement over here. I'm going to put a just a concrete dirty over here. Let's say there wasn't grass here, there was something that looked like this. Now you want to make sure that these two taxiways join. Now if you make a Bézier turn here like this. Oops, doesn't work. There you go. So, and you join this and you say, ah, that looks pretty good. I snap this one, I snap this one. There's one over here. Hold down Alt, snap this one. So I snap these and I make this look as nice as possible. So this should work out okay, right? So you zoom in and you see it really does, and it overlaps. There's a gap here. How do you make these two match? Of course, you can do the old-fashioned trick. Snap this one, they're all snapped. Now you can click on this one, you see where the handle is, it's right here. Now you snap on this one and you grab the handle and you move it until it snaps right here. See, now it's snapped and now they are joined. But this is a lot of work and it's tedious. An easier way is to use the match Bézier handles command. You click and you see it snaps to match the handles. Now they're both matched, they're the same. You won't have a gap in the simulator, and sometimes it doesn't work if there are multiple nodes joined together. Maybe there's another texture that also joins this node or so. So you have to experiment a little. If all things fail, you can always come back to my method that I showed you initially, where you look where the handles are and then move them accordingly until they snap. But this is what you should endeavor to do. Always make sure that when you join two polygons, they are joined nicely. Use as few nodes as possible, and when you join, make them join nicely. Another issue that comes up again and again with the taxiways is where they join the runway. You have the runway here. I'm just going to make it real quick. You see this is my runway. And I'm going to make it a little more narrow, like right here. Okay, there's my runway. Now you have the taxiway coming down here, and of course it starts here, it goes a straight line to over here, and you see there's one turn over here, and then it goes like this, and it goes over here, and it goes up like this. Then we have one node, and it goes like this, and a straight line until, and then you would go on. I'm just going to close it here to show you. Now, obviously, this is not a good join. Now you want to snap it. You say, okay, so I'm going to select it, hold down Alt, click, nothing happens. You cannot add nodes to a runway. So what to do? Now, what we want you to do is we want you to overlap, and we don't want you to overlap a little bit. We want you to overlap like this. A lot. Why is that? Because maybe the next guy finds out that you didn't place the runway very well. Maybe, there's actually a command that you can use when you run Explain to snap the runways to the official positions. You know that there's an official data point, the CIFP runway endpoint, and Explain gives you a little leeway in placing your runway. So maybe the real runway would be like this, but you say, hey, the picture is like this, so I'm just going to move it here. And then, WED is probably okay with it because it's within, I don't know, 10 meters or what the limit here is. But there's a command to run Explain with exactly placed runways. And then in this case, it would snap like this. And if you made this look, if you made this joint really fit just about like this, then the runway would snap like this and people would have a gap. That's why we need you to overlap the taxiway, and you can overlap far. It doesn't matter because the runway will always be drawn over the taxiway. The taxiway will also suppress runway edge lights. So if you have runway edge lights, I don't have any here, I think, but let's say, yeah, I do. But they're not drawn, so you cannot see them here. But of course, they are placed in the real world, and they're on little stalks, unless they hit a taxiway texture, and that way they will be flat, so that the airplane can roll over them. And that's why you want to overlap. What you don't want to do is you don't want to use the taxiway to draw shoulders. People used to do that, so they would go like this, and then the next taxiway would go up like here, and then would just make one big thing. And they have, just to show you, they would do it like this, and here's the next joint, and then go over like to the next one. So then you would have a big, the taxiway making a shoulder. Now you don't do that anymore, because we have shoulders now on the runway that you can make just as the way you want. But the problem is, if you do a shoulder like this, all the little lights from the runway that should sit on stalks will be flush to the ground, because X-Plane thinks you want to taxi over them, and it looks stupid. So don't do that. Don't use taxiways or polygons at all to draw shoulders. Use the built-in runway shoulder feature to do that. Okay, let's look at my list. Talked about that. One last thing I want to talk about when we are talking taxiways is making the lights. And we all know that taxiways have certain properties. You can set a line attribute. That's the edge that you want to do. A lot of people will do the double yellow. That way you have a double yellow line. That's a nice taxiway edge. And you also have the light attribute. Most normal people will use taxiway edge lights, and you can see here, if you zoom in, you can see where it draws the edge lights. Now we do have submissions where people actually look for the edge lights objects. We have them. You can place them individually, and they start placing individual edge lights, or they use a line like this and make the line parallel, more or less parallel to the taxiway, and they say, hey, I don't want any lines, I just want the taxiway edge lights. And of course it works like this, but don't do that. You just use the built-in feature. If you have a taxiway, you can use the light attribute feature here to place taxiway edge lights. That way they will be always nice and parallel, and that's the way you should do that. You should not place them individually, and you should not use a second line to make taxiway edge lights. That's just more data that we need to store and that X-Plane needs to draw. So that shouldn't be done. You see what happens here when you just select the whole taxiway to have a line and edge lights. It also places the edge lights here on the taxiway or on the runway, and you certainly don't want that. So what you would do is you would say, okay, from this point on, oops, that was the wrong direction actually. So you would say from this point on, of course this one was just a bad example, so let's get rid of that real quick. But from this point on, I don't want any, you can select this one, hold down Control to do it, hold down Control, none. You don't want any edge or markings or lights. And if you really want to be precise, you can make a little node here, and then you could actually make it right up to the runway so that it looks nice. Yeah, that's it. I think that's enough for this video. Make sure that you use taxiways only where airplanes can go. We don't want to see taxiways used to make parking lots, to make access roads, not even where the fuel truck goes or anything. A taxiway should stop right here at this line. You see there's a little plane here. It will probably go like this over here. That's probably a parking lot for cars. So don't use taxiways here. People used to love using taxiways because they gave lots of options for textures. Now you don't need to do that anymore because our polygons do the same thing. And if you type in pavement, you can see all the different types of pavement polygons we have now, and they give you basically the same options that the taxiways do. So there's no need to use taxiways, because one thing that taxiways do is they kill roads. Whenever there's a recut of the scenery every few years, Explain looks at where taxiways are, and if you use this taxiway here and if you used it to make this, let's say you use it to make this parking lot here, and you make a little access here to this road, and then Explain will probably figure, you know, when it tries to draw this road, it will say, oops, there's a taxiway here. There can't be a road here because cars and planes don't match, so I'm going to kill this road. And you will see that there's the road that comes in here to the airport will just probably only go to this point, and then it will pick up again over here, and this middle section is killed because it collided with the taxiway. And that's why using taxiways for anything but plane movement areas is totally outlawed. Don't do it. And if you work on an old scenery where you see that was done, then convert it. You don't have to delete it. All you need to do is you need to go to edit and you say convert to draped polygon, and you see that it just changed to, you know, to a draped polygon, and you cannot pick edge lines or lights anymore. And you can also set the type of texture you want really conveniently. But now it will just slip underneath the road going here. It will not kill the road. So that's why you should use polygons for that. Okay, I think that's enough for this one, the first video. The next one will deal with some other stuff that we see. But for now, I think that's enough to digest.